Good Wednesday. Thank you for joining us. I know we are halfway through the month of January, but Happy New Year. This is our first time engaging and seeing you here on our Bible study platform. I took a couple weeks off, but I'm glad that you have chosen to be with us. I'm going to ask that, if you don't mind, help us share these platforms that we're on, share this Bible study time. It's easiest to do it if you're on Facebook. You can just start a watch party or repost it. Those of you who are on Twitter, do the same thing. Just retweet it and tell people to join us. If you're on YouTube, you can actually shoot out the link via email or text somebody and just tell them to jump on. Jump on to SMZBC Worships. Those of you who are on Uber Conference, we are thankful that you have decided to join us. And you too can let somebody know they can join 203-9011 with that 804 area code. And we also welcome you, those of you who are watching by way of Periscope and our website. And we're going to jump right in, and this is a focus on our sixth lion chasing skill. Mark Batterson's book, Chase the Lion, has pretty much a survival guide. That's what he calls it, a survival guide. And there's 7 lion chasing skills. And those of you who are watching, you see them. For those of you who are listening, I'll share them. And these are all lion chasing skills that we have already gone through. So if you've not caught up, then you have the opportunity to do so. All those platforms I just mentioned carry old Bible studies that we have taught over the course of the past couple months. So defying odds, facing fears, reframing problems, embracing uncertainty, taking risk. And then today we're going to focus on skill number 6, which is seizing opportunities. Seizing opportunities. I want to start off with a quote from George Bernard Shaw. George Bernard Shaw, quote that Mark Batterson uses in the book. And this is what he says. It says, people are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. That's what Shaw says. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want. And if they can't find them, they make them. Now, I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are. If you are watching, you can jump in one of the chats and share. Let me know whether or not you believe wholeheartedly in Shaw's quote. People are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want. And if they can't find them, they make them. Mark Batterson shares a story. He pastors rather large church in the D.C. area, and he tells a story of one of his members, a lawyer by the name of John, who I think was doing law work in Georgetown. And as I said, he attended the church, one of the parishioners at the church, and Mark tells a story of how John actually was a well-established lawyer, had a law firm, was doing his thing, but John had this vision, this dream, this hope, this desire. He wasn't as fully engaged in his law work because he wanted to be a filmmaker. All right, so Batterson talks about one day him and John having lunch and him telling his dream of leaving the law firm and going into filmmaking and producing full time. And Batterson actually says in the book that it was crazy enough to qualify as a God thing. One of the quotes that comes out of the book is, crazy career changes seem to be part and parcel of following Christ. And so Batterson goes on to say a couple of months after their lunch, John, the lawyer, ends up seeing in the Washington Post a story about human trafficking. And the story takes its root and based in Uganda. And John is so intrigued, he does a Google search about human trafficking and the sex trade, selling of young women in the sex trade, and it led John to a professor here in the United States who literally was putting together a trip to take some folk to Uganda to do some work over there. And John got connected. He applied to be a part of the program, which allowed for him to go take the trip. And I don't have time to get into all the details, but John ends up, the professor lets him know because of his authenticity that he could take the trip. So he's preparing to take the trip, and Battison goes on to tell us a week before he leaves, there is a film, a party for those who are involved in film editing, producing, etc. in the DC area. John gets invited. He didn't really want to go. He's trying to put together last minute stuff for the trip. His wife encourages him to go, and he goes. Little does he know, all right, now he's going to Uganda. Little does he know that at this party is the ambassador to the U.S. for Uganda. And he ends up making a connect. The next day he goes to the office, and there's a connection made there. John takes the trip to Uganda, makes the film, is connected to persons while he's there, comes back. I think he's there for 3 weeks doing the filming, comes back, it's 3 months of editing, etc. And Mark is excited. Battison is excited because John is able to produce this 30-minute film that they actually premiered at his church. And the movie, 30-minute documentary, was called Sing. Out of it came the opportunity of John's lifetime, and John became an assistant producer responsible for editing, etc. of a $20 million film. And Battison is projecting spirit casting that one day John was going to win an Oscar, etc. But John had to have the faith, and be willing to take the risk. More importantly, to seize the opportunity. Battison wants us to know that God is in the business of making sure that we cross paths with the right people at the right time. I want to make sure that you understand that, we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that we set it up for us to, cross paths. But God is in the opportunity of fulfilling. God is in the business of fulfilling opportunity. So again, if you're going to screenshot something or record something, God is in the business of making sure that we cross paths with the right people at the right time. If God can turn bodybuilders into judges, or fishermen into apostles, or shepherds into kings, then God can most definitely make your crazy dream come true. If God can turn a lawyer into a filmmaker, God can make your crazy dream come true. Again, I want to make sure that you get this. The God we serve is in the business of making sure that we cross paths with the right people at the right time. Now, dreams usually start out as mustard seed opportunities. All right. In fact, some of the biggest dreams often start out as the smallest opportunities. Catch that again. Some of the biggest dreams often start out as the smallest opportunities. The seed is so small. This is what Battison wants us to grab. The seed is so small that you wonder if it actually can grow into anything of significance. I mean, it's that whole mustard seed of faith thing. Those of you who ever seen a mustard seed, so small, you really got to pay attention to make sure it's there, but it becomes something major. If you ever look at a tree or a plant, many things that are planted that start off in an infancy stage grow to become major things. And Battison wants us to see that our dreams usually start off mustard seed size, all right, but they actually grow into some significant things. When you think about the story that I just told you about John, when you think about the story of Benaiah, when you think about some of the other stories you're going to hear about today, there are seeds that are planted in the spirit of those who are who are doing the work. Lion chasers then recognize a God-ordained opportunity when they see one. You go back and think about that story. All right. A part of the struggle for John in making the transition from being a lawyer to a filmmaker was he was scared. All right. Any opportunity comes our way involves a whole lot of sacrifices. It's risky. Being a lion chaser requires you to make some sacrifices, and it requires you to get over your being afraid and understand that there are some risks. All right. Lion chasers recognize God-ordained opportunities when they see one, but they also are willing to chase opportunities halfway around the world if that is what God is calling you to do. John left Georgetown and ended up in Uganda. All right. God working on him there. Our ultimate destinies are determined by whether or not we seize the God-ordained opportunities that are presented for you, for me. The ultimate destinies that are in front of us will be determined by whether or not we can seize that God-ordained opportunity that's presented to us. Remember, it's not up to you. God hooks us up at the right time, at the right place, with the right people. You don't need to be spending a whole bunch of time chasing it. God finds ways sometimes to just make it happen. I want to share something that Batterson shares in the book. He says if we seize these opportunities, the dominoes continue to fall and create a chain reaction. If you miss the opportunities, there's a potential that you can shortchange God's plan for our lives. Now, that doesn't mean that we should live in fear that we'll somehow miss the will of God. God does give other chances. God gives second chance, third chance, fourth. That's a testimony of somebody here. For some of you, you're on 10, 15, 20, 25 chances. All right? If you know the story of Moses, you know that Moses was on the run for 40 years. He was a fugitive. Moses was a killer. He killed somebody. Moses was on the run for 40 years for killing an Egyptian. All right? 40 years. And it was after 40 years that Moses finally encounters God in a burning bush. All right. God reopened the door of opportunity and gave him a second chance. And that's the beauty of the grace of God. Grace of God has no expiration dates. That's an amen right there. The grace of God has no expiration dates. God will keep on opening up the doors of opportunity for you. But I like this thing because Batterson says, I don't know about you. I'm glad that God is a second chance God, third chance God, fourth chance God. But I'm not trying to delay the process if I don't have to. I'm not trying to miss out on the opportunities that God has for me on the front go round. Why? Because life is too short. We've been talking about 2 Samuel 23 for the past 6 or 7 weeks now. If this is your first time, we're going to reintroduce real quickly a couple of verses from 2 Samuel 23. Reintroduce Benaiah, and I want you to hear the story, and then we'll jump right back in.
Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, a valiant fighter from Kabzeel, performed great exploits. He struck down Moab's 2 mightiest warriors. He also went down into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. And he struck down a huge Egyptian. Although the Egyptian had a spear in his hand, Benaiah went against him with a club. He snatched the spear from the Egyptian's hand and killed him with his own spear. Such were the exploits of Benaiah, son of Jehoiada. He too was as famous as the 3 mighty warriors. He was held in greater honor than any of the 30, but he was not included among the 3. And David put him in charge of his bodyguard.
So put yourself in Benaiah's sandals. All right. The story definitely could have been scripted differently. Benaiah sees the lion, and you've heard this before. You know it. Runs. Let's see this way. Benaiah sees the lion, and then Benaiah runs away. Breathes a big sigh of relief. I can see him on the side of a cave, bent over, thanking the Lord in worship that he wasn't eaten alive. No harm, no foul. All right. Now, running away from the lion, I know for most, if not all of us, running away from the lion would have been the most logical thing to do. For some, prudent. But guess what? If he would have ran, he would have probably gotten away, went back to the community, and fit in with everybody. He wouldn't have had the resume building experience that goes into him becoming the person that he wants, that he was trying to be. Now, a lot of times the voices in our head, the things that speak to us, our conscience, or whatever you want to call it, will tell us to do the least impactful, most safe things, the things that are most prudent. But Scripture doesn't describe Benaiah as being prudent. It actually uses the adjective valiant. All right. Now there are things that happen in your inner being, would be telling you that if you did it, you're crazy, you're risky, you're dangerous, you're dumb, stupid. Sometimes your inner being will ask you, have you lost your mind? And I believe that, being a lion chaser sometimes require you to say, yes, I've lost my mind. I've got to be trusting of God. I've got to operate on faith. I've got to follow some of these survival skills. I've got to think about taking risk and facing fears and finding a way to reframe problems. I said all of that because I want to remind you again that lion chasers are opportunists. Lion chasers are opportunists. All right? Their modus operandi is seizing God-ordained opportunities. Lion chasers aren't focused on avoiding problems. All right. Benaiah had to prove himself just like everybody else does. He started out as a bodyguard in Israel. He had a low-ranking position in the administration. Battison jokes around and says he probably had a second job. He evidently proved himself in that position, and he was able to move up and become a leader over 24,000 men. He proved himself again, not just to David, but also to Solomon. All right. And so Benaiah fulfills his destiny and realizes his dream. And so you say, how do you climb the military chain of command all the way to the top? How do you become the most powerful person in Israel next to the king? And this is the piece that Battison shares that I think is key. He said he did it by seizing one opportunity at a time. It is capitalizing on these God-ordained opportunities. All right? And what we fail to realize is this, is that Benaiah had to put together a resume. All right? He had to have some people who can co-sign on him. He had to sit down in some face-to-face interviews. He had to be clear. And none of that is any different than what we go through right now. It is life's experiences that can build us for what's next. So I want to repeat that dreams are achieved one opportunity at a time. Dreams are achieved one opportunity at a time. And I need you to be like Benaiah. I don't want you to settle for prudence. I don't want you to stay stuck where you are. I want you to strive for valiance. I want you to make the call, apply for the program. I want you to send that email, pick up that phone, make that call, hand in that resignation letter if you need to, set up that meeting. But dreams are achieved one opportunity at a time. Battison goes as far as to say this: the genealogy of success always traces back to those mustard seed opportunities that we spoke of first. Now here's the challenge. Many of us fail to seize the small opportunities because we're looking for the big opportunities. But Scripture says, do not despise these small beginnings. And I like this. It's probably my favorite piece in the whole chapter. Many of us fail to seize the small opportunities because we're looking for many of us miss out on the big because we fail to seize the small. All right. Scripture says, do not despise these small beginnings. Benaiah started out as a bodyguard. Joshua was a personal assistant. Elisha was an intern. Nehemiah was a cupbearer. You got to prove yourself with the small opportunities. And when you do, God will bring bigger and better opportunities your way. I'm certain that there's somebody here with that testimony. That when you look back over your life, your success was built upon because you showed yourself faithful in the small opportunities. So today we're going to meet a new character. All right. And I'm almost certain you probably never heard of him before. I didn't. And I read the Bible cover to cover a couple times. And, well, not a couple times straight through, but I've read the Bible enough that I've not remembered this guy. All right. Now, it doesn't mean that he's insignificant, but maybe God was holding him for this moment. His name is only mentioned in one verse, in one chapter, in one book of the Bible. One verse, one chapter, one book. But you'll see today that one verse speaks volumes. All right. He is a biblical footnote, I'm certain, just like Benaiah. We've made Benaiah important, but many of us read this story and completely looked over Benaiah. But this new character does something pretty remarkable. Check it out.
After Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath, who struck down 600 Philistines with an ox goad. He too saved Israel.
As far as we know, he had no armor, no military training, no weapons. There's nothing that qualifies him to do what he does. The Bible says that he has an ox guard. That's a long stick that's used to prod ox while you're plowing. I'm certain that if he could choose his weapon, it wouldn't be that if he was trying to wage war. Badison, begins to talk about, I wonder what he would do if he had a real weapon, but he didn't. He didn't have a sword, didn't have a spear. All he had was this ox guard. And he did the best that he could with what he had. And I'm gonna come back and talk about that in a second. All right. I believe that he and Benaiah were kindred spirit. Both of them had they displayed epic courage. Both of them defied the odds. Both of them changed the course of history. Their actions helped them and others. And both of them easily could have found a logical excuse of non-involvement. Here you look at this look at this text we just looked at, and he was outnumbered 600 to 1, and all he had was a stick. The Egyptian had a spear the size of a weaver's bow, and all Benaiah had was a club. They were kindred spirits, yet they did the best they could with what they had. They were courageous, and they defied odds. Lion chasers don't look for excuses, y'all. You got to get this. They don't focus on the disadvantage. Lion chasers find a way to make circumstances work in their favor. Hear this before I move on. They don't look for excuses. They don't focus on disadvantage. They don't focus on why they can't do it. They don't focus on the things that are against them. They find a way to make circumstances work in their favor. Badison has this question that I thought was relevant, and hopefully it makes you think. He said, isn't it ironic that some people who have so much do so little, and others who have so little do so much? Lion chasers don't let what they cannot do keep them from doing what they can. Lion chasers don't look for excuses. They don't complain about what they don't have. They don't focus on their disadvantages. They find a way to take advantage of the circumstances and make sure that they work in their favor. And they don't let what they cannot do keep them from doing what they can. I love it because Batterson challenges us to rethink success. Batterson says that success is doing the best you can with what you have where you are. The best you can with what you have where you are. He goes on to talk about success being unique. Success looking different for different people, depending on what your circumstance and your gift is. But he says there's one common denominator that he sees in all successful people. He says he believes that successful people can spot an opportunity and they can seize the opportunity when it is presented to them. There's a sermon that I have in my repertoire that I've preached a lot when I was first starting in ministry, and it was entitled "Do the Best You Can with What You Have." It's one of the New Testament scriptures where lady has some oil and she pours it on Jesus, and the disciples say that she's wasting it, and Jesus says, "Leave her alone. She's doing the best that she can with what she has." At the beginning of that sermon, I talk about those of you who are sports fans. Back in the 80s, there was a 5'3" NBA point guard named Muggsy Bogues. Came from Maryland. I think he played at DeMatha. Went on to play at Wake Forest. And 5'3", very, very, very small. One of the smallest players in NBA history. Yet had a stellar career because he used the gifts that he had. He played a game where being tall was normal. And yet he used the ability that he had to be quick, to maneuver in a different way. He didn't focus on his disadvantages. And I'm telling you that Muggsy Bogues did the best that he could with what he had. And that's why, as a lion chaser, you got to change your perspective up here. You cannot look for excuses. You cannot be complaining about what you can't do and how things are lined up. If you want to be successful, the key is doing the best you can with what you have where you are. And I need you to think about that. How do I do the best that I can with what I have where I am? This is how. You look at every opportunity as a gift from God. Every opportunity is a gift from God. And then you got to ask yourself, what do I do with that opportunity? All right. And what I do with that opportunity then is my gift to God. Now, Batterson talks about the word opportunity, and he says that opportunity is translated in the Greek kairos. It refers to a serendipitous window of opportunity. All right. He goes on to say that seeing and seizing opportunities is an overlooked and underappreciated dimension of spiritual maturity. Every day is filled with countless God-ordained opportunities. Not a day goes by that we don't have an opportunity to love, an opportunity to serve, an opportunity to give, and an opportunity to learn. He challenges us because the truth is most of us want opportunities, but we want it neat and nice. We want it already stuffed or caged up. We want it cooked medium well. We want it served on a gold platter. Opportunities do present themselves. All right, and I'll talk about this a little later. Batterson says they are presented at the most inopportune times, though. All right, now we shift, and I want to talk to you about something that is very important. Batterson says that there are only two ways to live your life. You can either live your life in survival mode or in prayer mode. And this is a shift. This is one of the major lessons I'm teaching you today on my way out of here. Survival mode is simply reacting to circumstances around you. It's like a pinball existence. All right, and it happens. And after a while, it can become monotonous, predictable, boring. If Benaiah had been in survival mode, he would have just reacted to the situation by just doing what? Running. Prayer mode is the exact opposite. Your antenna, your spiritual antenna is up. Your radar is on. All right. He talks about this reticular activating system. It's on red alert. It's like the nerve cells at the bottom of your brain that go off when important things happen. Prayer puts you in that type of posture. All right. It's that RAS is what they call it. When it feels like, when the brain feels like there's something that is important, or these nerve cells, then everything that hits at that point registers. So if there's something that intrigues you or whatever be the case. So prayer does the same thing for your journey. All right. The Aramaic word for prayer, slapha, actually means to set a trap. Prayer helps us catch the opportunities God throws our way. And so, heading toward the end, a couple pieces of scripture. One of them right here. I think I got 3 or 4 scripture before we're done. The Psalm, the 5th chapter, the 3rd verse, I think kind of sets the course for where we're going. Look at this real quickly as it relates to prayer.
In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my request before you and wait expectantly.
One of our greatest spiritual shortcomings is having low expectations. Mark Batterson, talks about the fact that we don't expect much from God because we don't ask much. All right? Batterson personally says when his prayer life is hidden, he believes God and can believe God for everything. But when he's in a prayer slump, he has a hard time believing God for much of anything. And I'm telling you, low expectations are the byproduct of a insignificant or from a time perspective, prayerlessness, not praying much at all. But prayer has a way of upsizing our expectations when we're consistently connecting with God. And that's what David does here. David can't wait to see what God is going to do next because David is living in prayer mode. In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my request before you. And what? Wait expectantly. If there was anything that I would tell you as we move forward, it would simply be as you move forward and seize opportunities, that you got to devote yourself to prayer. It is your prayer life that keeps you focused. The more you pray, the higher your expectations. Prayer is important. And we've got to find a way to create categories like that reticular activating system so that we'll notice anything and everything, as I was telling you, that helps us achieve the goals that God has for us and answers our prayers. And it all comes back to being connected. If you want to see and you want to seize God opportunities, you've got to live in a prayer mode. All right, so check out Colossians 4 and 2, and I'll come back with the word after that.
Devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful.
If you want to make the most of every opportunity, you've got to devote yourself to prayer. That's what Colossians is saying. Be watchful. Now, the word watchful is a throwback to the Old Testament. The watchmen, the guys who set up on the city wall, and their whole job was to keep watch, scan the horizon, see what's going on. They were the first people to see the enemy attacking. They were the first people to see the traitors who traveled, and that's how we got to be. We got to live in prayer mode. We got to be watchmen, watch women, all right? We got to see further than other people see. And they see things, watch men and women before others see them. And they see things that other people don't see. People who live in prayer mode see opportunities that other people don't even notice. Living in prayer mode is the difference between seeing coincidences and seeing providences. Prayer has a way, Batterson says, of helping us recognize that we might things that we might dismiss as accidents that are really divine appointments. Prayer is an opportunity incubator. It is, and this is the beautiful thing about prayer. One of the pieces that I caught when I was reading, opportunity is not on you. Opportunity is a part of God's portfolio. And that's just something for you to think about. While you're trying to force yourself on the moment, sometimes God's saying, I got it. I'm just waiting for you to get out the way. Opportunity is not on you. It is a part of God's portfolio. And here's the good news, my brothers and my sisters. You have plenty of God-ordained opportunities. Your job is to see and seize those opportunities by tuning in to the still and small voice of the Holy Spirit. You're going to have a whole lot of opportunities. You just got to pray for God to give you the eye to see it. And then when the opportunity comes, you've got to seize it. Mark Batterson says, when I'm not in prayer mode, I have good ideas. But when I'm in prayer mode, I have God ideas. And I'd rather have one God idea than 1,000 good ideas. He goes on, Batterson's church is the owner of and founders of Ebenezer's coffee house in D.C. And he goes on and tells a story about Howard Schultz, who has a decision to make whether or not he wants to put $75,000 of his own personal money, personal income, into initially what would be a $4 million total investment to purchase some Starbucks coffee houses. And he talked about how Schultz seizes the opportunity. And it was that opportunity that when the Starbucks went public back in June of 1992, they actually were second on the trading platform NASDAQ, and at the end of the day had a stock portfolio of $273 million. And that's a great turn on $4 million. Batterson wants us to see, sometimes you got to seize the opportunity. It may seem crazy, but at the end, God's up to something. Opportunities usually come disguised as in the most inopportune times, at the most inopportune moments. They come disguised as insurmountable problems. All right? And, I shared this earlier, I shared it again. Lion chasers are the kind of people who rise to the occasion. They're the kind of people who refuse to be intimidated. They're the type of people that play to win. They fight for what they believe in. They don't live life sitting back on their heels. They live life on the tips of their toes, waiting to see what God is going to do next. Now, a couple scriptures, and I'm almost out of your way. I want you to check these scriptures out from Ecclesiastes 11. And I'll come back in a second.
Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle. For you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well.
Listen, for what it's worth, the average college graduate will change jobs 10 times. They may change a career path 3 to 5 times. You don't have to get it right the first time, but you do have to sow your seed. You got to start somewhere. You got to seize the opportunity. More often than not, the only thing between you and your dream is a rational excuse. What excuses did you make in 2020? What excuses are you trying to not block you in 2021? 2020, you said, I'm too busy. I'm not qualified. I'm overqualified. Got too many problems. I don't have enough money. Not ready yet. Here's a news flash. You'll never be ready. but you're in good company. Jesus wasn't ready. Right before his first miracle, there's a hint of hesitation. My time has not yet come. But his mama, who loved him enough, pushed him out. Maybe it's time for you to dust that dream that God is giving you off. Maybe it's time for you to throw your hat in the ring. My question to you as we end this is, what are you waiting for? I'll end it with this. A willingness to fail is a prerequisite to success. I've shared with you several times during this Bible study course, you don't want to live your life with what ifs. You don't want to be that person that later in life saying, what if I had done this? What if I had seized the opportunity, seized the moment? Now, I got a couple questions for you. Is your fear of failing keeping you from seizing the opportunity? What practical steps could you take to become less afraid of failing? Now, I feel like we've given you some steps today, and I'm so glad and appreciative that you have decided to join us. Again, Happy New Year, even though we're half of the month through. Join us tomorrow for prayer. We get on at 7 o'clock, 804-203-9011. We'll be here Friday. Our food pantry is back in effect. So if you need some food to carry you through, some groceries, meat, vegetables, canned goods, whatever, we're here, 14 West Duval Street. We start lining up at 12:30, start serving at 12:45. Always, you're welcome to join us at 10:45 a.m. on Sundays. And if this ministry is blessing you, and one thing, many of you hit me up in 2020 and was like, listen, I didn't go to your church on Sundays. I didn't even know nothing about y'all, but you was blessing me through Bible studies, blessing me on Sundays. So if you feel like the ministry is blessing you, then sow into it. smzbc.org. You can give online. We got Cash App, $SMZBC. We do Venmo, SMZBC. You can do Zelle, giving at smzbc.org. You can mail to the church, 14 West Duval Street, Richmond, 23220. Mount members, I want to see you. We're going to sign off. Jump over to Zoom real quick. Numbers right there, 892-0180-4255. Those of you on Uber Conference, hold on. Don't go anywhere. All right? Got some prayer requests that I need to share with you. Seeking shut-in information. And see your face and talk to you. All right. Love you guys. Thank you for joining us. Check us out Sunday. And for those of you who are on primarily for Bible study, same time next week, noon.